Now on the KTSA Quarter Moon Plumbing AC Heating Newsmaker line by Willie Yang, who is a frequent guest, great friend of our show, the owner of Blue Armor Security Services, an active shooter trainer, someone that has worked with the United States Secret Service, the SAPD, the investigative arm of the Bexar County DA's office, and many more resume points. And Willie Yang, good to have you back with us. Good afternoon to you. What is the challenge of investigating? What are the questions you would have in investigating this Fort Stewart shooting incident today?
Well, Jack, I would think motive initially, right? I mean, why did this occur? Fortunately, you had several trained soldiers that were there that reacted really quickly. I mean, Fort Stewart is 280,000 acres. It's one of the largest U.S. Army bases in the U.S. And with that many people that are on that are stationed there, we're very fortunate that no one was, killed. And immediately after the suspect started to shoot, you had several of the soldiers that jumped and held him down and disarmed him and waited for law enforcement to show up. So it was really, really good, quick response to save a lot of lives. But I guess we wouldn't know why, right? And it's kind of interesting to see or to find out what the answers were. He was, he was an active soldier. He's a sergeant, Sergeant Cornelius Radford. So he hadn't been deployed. So it's just going to be interesting to find out the motive.
A lot of people's minds, and this is in the early hours of the story when we didn't know the particulars, didn't know who he was, didn't know how it had gone down. A lot of people were thinking about, I know I was, Major Hassan and the Fort Hood shooting in 2009. You, obviously, this is your sort of bread and butter expertise. What is different about everything from training and protocols to lockdowns to reading warning signs? What's different between 2009, when the Fort Hood shooting, which was much worse, and this incident today?
Well, I think the training, Jack, as a matter of fact, ironic, when this shooting occurred, I was actually doing active shooting training, and I was actually talking about the Fort Hood shooting down in 2009 and talking about how these incidents sometimes are so unpredictable. You wouldn't think that a soldier, an active duty soldier, would start shooting other active duty soldiers, and I was teaching that. And as I was teaching, my phone started to alert, notifying me of this particular shooting on the military base. And I think the difference is from 2009 to 2025 is the training. We're beating it into not just schools, but businesses, military bases, and everyone else, that we're not immune to this incident, these critical incidents, and they can happen anywhere. I know the schools typically get the most attention because you're dealing with innocent children. But, I mean, look, this is military bases happening, churches, grocery stores, movie theaters, you name it.
When we think about Fort Hood, that's an act of terrorism. It has, political, ideological motivations, much more serious weaponry, a great loss of life. And afterwards, it galled a lot of us that the Obama administration characterized it as workplace violence, obviously for political, domestic political reasons. From what you know, is there a heightened, more realistic awareness and preparedness so that something like Major Hassan's attack might be harder to pull off today than it was then? Or what, if anything, do you think is different on these bases now?
Just what you said, Jack, there's a lot more awareness, alert, and there's not as much complacency as we have seen in the past. As I mentioned, we're not immune to these incidents, and that is why I'm so adamant about training and educating and informing law enforcement and citizens on the appropriate actions to take. the things that we should do to help prevent these types of incidents or prevent from being a victim. I'm teaching tourniquets. Get a lot of these people that die from these critical incidents actually bleed to death. They bleed out because it takes so long for first responders to get to the first aid part of it, saving lives, because the first most important thing is to stop the killing, and that means stop the threat. And so I think that the training has a lot to do with this and situational awareness and the people aren't as complacent, and they're speaking up a lot more when they see these signs. To your point, Fort Hood, he used a military issued weapon. From my understanding so far, and it was preliminary, the sergeant today used his personal handgun, and that probably made a huge difference in the outcome.
Willie Ng's company is Blue Armor Security, and Willie, we always appreciate your being available on days like this and for stories like this. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Jack.
All right, it's 3:41. The Jack Show on 550 and 107.1 KT.